Welcome back to the Michael Brooks Show. Joining us now, it's been a long time in the making, the Anthony Fantano. He's the host of the Needle Drop, massive, mega YouTube channel. He's also the hardest working music nerd in the business. Anthony, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Really appreciate it, man. You like Adidas Tracksuits?
I do love Adidas Tracksuits. I've sort of been a little into the look ever since just like seeing Run DMC in them. I've just always thought it was like a really sharp look. And a fan of the show who is an employee at the Adidas store hit me up and said, "Yo, dude, just like if you want anything at the Adidas store, like I could totally get you something half off." And I'm like, man, like I've always wanted a tracksuit. My Italian heritage is like always spoken to me and said, you want a tracksuit, like it makes sense. And so I picked one up, and then it was just like it was. I mean, you can attest to this. It's like wearing a glove. All over your entire body. It is.
Yes, and also the mobility of being able to look dope, move around, but then also just like not change before you go to the gym. But you sent me a message with literally a video of you opening the box.
Yes, I got every color of the rainbow.
Yes, you did.
I got the blue, I got the red, I got the black. I have all the colors.
Don't undersell it, man. All right, no, I was inspired and jealous when you watched that video. So how did you get into the music review game?
I kind of started all the way back to my college radio days, just doing a music show covering a lot of different genres. And when I was going to school for broadcast communications and journalism, eventually landed a internship at an NPR station in the area and was shadowing reporters. The station I was working at had gone from all classical to all talk the year that I had sort of started interning there. And they were repeating a lot of programming, and I pitched this idea for just like a music-based podcast. And that's sort of where the Needle Drop started. And it kind of evolved into the YouTube thing down the road as a means to kind of define myself against what everybody else was doing in the music world. Because at that time, there were already music blogs, there were already music podcasts, there were already sort of Spins and Pitchforks and Rolling Stones. All those players were already kind of established. And the only thing that I could think that, budget-wise would make sense for me, because I didn't have thousands of dollars to blow on like a super extravagant blog layout, was to just jump on YouTube and start talking about music on camera.
And I'm wondering, like, I read all of those places sometimes when I'm interested in a particular record or whatever, but
sure,
there's an interesting, do you think it's part of just the format? Because it's like your videos are, you could match anybody from Pitchfork in terms of like nerdery and reference and analysis, but you're definitely stripping. Like, it's funny because I know you have a college radio and journalism background, but there is like no complex head, no hype beat. Like, there's no pretension about it. Like, you've really, I mean, at least in my opinion, you've cut that down a lot while still being insane, like disturbingly informed in music. I have no idea how you know this much about music, but how do you pull it off?
It's just like a never-ending obsession. I mean, even before I was running my YouTube channel, I was always at the record store. I was always on Wikipedia. I was always on like allmusic.com. I was always reading various books about different genres if I could pick them up. I remember one time in college, my jazz professor I was just taking an intro jazz course to finish off an arts electives, and I played bass. So I just sort of, took that on to finalize my degree credits. And he had told me in the middle of one class that he had blown a bunch of the music department budget on a ton of like Impulse and Blue Note CDs, like from back in the day. And I went down there, and I think for like over the course of like a few weeks, I was taking out maybe 12 or 13 CDs at a time and just burning them and copying them.
I remember that.
And putting them on these giant data CDs and listening to them for hours and hours and hours. And prior to that, I was never into jazz. There was never sort of like nobody in my life sort of saying like, hey, this is good and this is bad, and this guy's like a huge jazz head. So I figured anything that he bought is probably worth listening to. So, experiences like that, being at the radio station where there were people who were metal nerds and hip hop nerds, and being able to sort of be influenced by everybody's taste in that arena, inspired me, but this is always something I've been, chasing after. Just music has always been sort of like a passion for me. And the internet has just kind of honestly made the whole situation worse because it just gives me so much more access to everything.
I'm picturing like your uncle in a tracksuit being like, "What do you want to listen to fucking jazz for?"
Oh my God. Honestly,
why are you listening to fucking Miles Davis?
My parents are like nowhere near like on the music spectrum in the way that I've been. But I do appreciate that when I was growing up, there's always that stereotypical story about your parents like, shitting all over whatever music that you liked or listened to. And that just wasn't the case. They were usually just open to whatever I wanted to try and whatever I wanted to listen to. And, and I think that sort of put me in a good position as well, because I was never told like, this is good, this is bad, this is good music, this isn't.
That's actually something that I like about this moment. Like, I mean, obviously you grow out of it, but even like when I was, like middle school, high school age, like there really was like this kind of very, whatever, kids are always like, people in general are always self-sorting themselves, but it was like, do you listen to indie or do you listen to rap? Do you listen?
And those barriers are
gone.
They're gone. It's done.
And it's not cool. Like it's cool to listen to everything now. That's very clear.
There are things that are cool and uncool. Usually what gets categorized as uncool is just old stuff.
Right.
But as far as different genres now and cultural barriers keeping people out of rock, keeping people out of pop, keeping people out of hip hop, it's just done. Kids who watch me and are 16, 17, 18, one day they'll be begging me to review the next Lady Gaga CD, and then a few weeks later they'll be begging me to review some obscure like noise rock band from another country or something. It's the taste spectrum is just all over the place right now.
Yeah, that's actually, and it's interesting to me because there is like, as part of, at least just to be political for a second, like I'm writing this book and this whole like idea of like fusing cosmopolitanism with socialism, and there are some ways where it's like part of the answer to this alt-right and Trump and all of that shit is to, I mean, you can't do that kind of simple like, oh no, look at sports and pop culture, everything's fine. That's obviously not true. But on the other hand, like you got to learn from it, and you got to say like that's an interesting disjuncture. That on one hand, all of these things are rising in this terrifying way in the political space, and then there's countervailing forces in the cultural space, and they need to be harnessed for politics. So just interesting that you say it's like it's just not there, at least in the pop space. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.